We'll come back as a big group. That's all right. It's the goddess in me coming out again. Let's just for our benefit, get a bit of a report back. You don't have to report back on everything that you said, but as sort of any sort of main summary themes, major similarities, major differences. What?
We were talking about the movement of the wrist and having the wrist in a certain.
Speak into the box.
Oh, sorry.
Is it on? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
The movement of the wrist and the example of holding the football in a different way, and that by having the wrist in a certain way, made a big difference. And
was this in ATM or in FI practice?
No, it was just a demonstration that Jordan gave.
Yep.
Yes, how with this fellow who was having tight hamstrings, and it was the position of his wrists when he was holding the ball that made a difference to his hamstrings, the way they were. With the
you explain your way.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
One of the things I got was
we need to. Sorry, everybody needs to hear. Yeah.
The rotation, whether it was like finger rotation or thumb rotation, was one of the things that I got out of the last time. The thumb rotation, the shoulders would come in, but with the finger rotation, they would go out. And I've actually used this with a footballer and a cyclist to open up the shoulders when they grip rather than closing the shoulders. And it's actually had effects on hamstrings. That was...
Right,
yeah.
Okay. So everyone caught that? So there's something about the finesse of hand positioning and using the rotation that you see manifest in the hand that obviously has a connection proximally. It would be the way I'd summate that. Yep. Chuck the box.
Just to go on further about that, it was about the ulnar and the radius and whether you're rotating around the thumb or the little finger and how they cross each other. So that was what that was all about.
All right, gotcha. Right. Marissa, big throw. Oh, there we go. It's teamwork. And we see rugby players. And are we going to see any of this? Are you allowed to do this? Jenny? Yeah, no, but are you allowed to do that on the box?
Volleyball.
I don't know if I'm coordinated enough to do that. I think our group, sounded like the Sydney and the Melbourne people did really similar things. Like even if we couldn't remember it initially, we might have had more of a emphasis on one thing versus another, but eventually we kind of went, oh yeah, we did do that. So that was good. But one thing that we spoke about was the connection between the first rib and sort of C7 and the pelvis, and with the pelvic clock, the connection with what happens in the pelvis and then what follows further up. And we did a lot of that in ATM and also in FI as well.
All right, so that was a real theme. All right, so I can assume that you are very familiar with the pelvis, the first rib circle, and everything in between.
We did a bit of the difference between rolling across your bones and lifting across, and feeling the difference between the roll and the lightness or lifting.
Okay, can you give us an example of rolling versus lifting? You can do it, you don't have to say it.
I haven't been practicing it that much.
Oh, then you can be bad at it. That's perfectly fine. Okay. Yeah, so with the, with the lift you have a push, right?
Yeah, like a feeling of fullness, like you've got a ball or something like that.
For rolling?
Well. Yeah. I think about it the opposite. I feel fuller when I'm lifting.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And rolling, I just sort of sink into it.
Okay,
into the
gotcha.
bones.
All right.
I don't know, maybe
No, these are good. No, and these sort of distinctions are really interesting for you to think about, and maybe I'll refer to them in the ATM teaching, the ATM series that you'll be doing on the floor, and also as ATM teachers, these sorts of, the way you're going to use language around whether you're going to be rolling or lifting. Now, in the ATM that we're going to do today, it is lifting, but it's rolling. Bit spooky, but there you go. All right.
Yeah, I felt like just with the lifting point that it was more, I felt my whole skeleton with the lifting as opposed to the rolling. It kind of felt more like just the muscles or something from memory. Yeah.
Right. So there's a more biomechanical kind of feel to the lifting. Is that structural?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We also talked about the discussion that we watched a Feldenkrais video of him talking about his definition, I guess, of health.
Yep.
And which stimulated a sort of whole room discussion around that, and the idea being one of sort of seeing health more as a general state of resilience in the person's system for their psychological and emotional and physical resilience to absorb whatever factors come in at them.
Yep. And where are we in the stage of, there's a bit of a spectrum of reactions to Feldenkrais, which usually starts with extreme frustration and possibly anger, and then ends up with profound love and respect. Yes. Where are we? Where is this group on that spectrum? Varied. Okay. Always okay. And it depends on the talk. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And his mood.
And his mood. Yeah. Both. We're a system. Good. Okay. Yep. So we've got the health thing nailed. Now, see, interestingly, currently now, health. People have been trying to redefine health in that kind of style for a long time, sort of from a sociological point of view, and it just hasn't been able to happen because people still put health with illness. And so you probably notice now in the literature that it's not now people using this word wellness or well-being because they haven't been able to get this different definition of health to stick. This health it's more than the absence of disease. And so from that sociological point of view, you'll see all now, if you want to go for Granson's theory, you've got to go well-being because health is still in this sickness box. It's a very interesting, we can try and, gentrify a word as much as we like and it doesn't necessarily happen. Just so long as we all understand what we mean by it that's the important thing. Okay, what else did we learn or did we think the attempt was there to teach us? Yeah, big chuck. Or maybe a cereal chuck.
Okay, so we also explored in more detail how we touch using, I thought, a really good analogy of squishy bottle versus hard cup to distinguish between
I saw this analogy in your learning activity. So squishy bottle and hard cup.
Squishy bottle and like a hard cup. So it was a way to help us distinguish between when we touch, contacting bone, making contact, bone through bone versus bone through muscle and the rest of it. So it was just another skill in terms of, hands-on work, which was really useful.
Great, good. Okay, that's really useful because I read this cup bottle business and I'm going. And I've got this list of questions for you at lunchtime. What was this? It's fine. Julie's, the good news, Julie's been very busy finishing the Brisbane training with Jenny and the rest of the team. So Brisbane 3 has just graduated, which is very exciting. So that's 20 odd fabulous Brisbaneites unleashed on the world. So that's very exciting for the Feldenkrais community. So Julie's been very busy graduating them, and then I suspect there's been a little bit of celebration going on, which is very good. All right, any other points of similarity, points of difference? That's great. Yeah, very good. We're really exploring the functionality of this box.
We were talking about really the similarity when we had in both Melbourne and Sydney and looked at the shoulder girdle and the way that the rib cage, the clavicles, the sternum are working together.
You have done the bits in between. Good. Yes.
And those, I think, personally for my learning, it's enhanced my my image, where I was just previously pretty excited about sensing my spine and my hip girdle sort of waggling about in the world. It's now got some of the more articulation of this upper part too, which I feel helps me. And I think we were agreeing about this to see what's happening for somebody in ATM.
Great. Because actually this business, if you haven't got this business doesn't mean a lot. You know, this doesn't have to bring your shoulder forward unless you know about the ribs. So everything kind of chases each other. It's not a magic connection between here and the hamstrings. It's not a magical neurological connection is what I'm saying. I don't believe in them.
This is an aside. I'll just describe to you what happens when that hum happens. What's happening is the amplified sound is feeding back into the microphone and a loop happens, and that's what the hum is. And so if you just cover the microphone or just be aware of where the speakers are and put your body in between the microphone and the speaker, then it will stop it happening. So it's not a mystery, it's...
It's not my brain and it's not the goddess retreat happening down here. Oh,
it's actually the god.
Oh, God.
So you can always hear.
All right. New Age is dead, isn't it, really? Thank God. Anyway, sorry, shouldn't say that.
We were doing a bit on proximal distal, talking about that, and also on the types of joints, the ball and socket with the shoulder and the hinge joints.
Okay.
So we did a bit on that as well.
Oh, good. Okay, so your anatomy is... Have faith, ye of little, behind. Who is it?
And I'm sure it was in the last segment where we did a lot on the clavicle and how some parts of it turn and parts of it are flat, and the rotation into, you know, the scapula where it joins there, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of that movement was what's happening in the clavicles, in the scapula, in the sternum, acromionial joints, all that sort of stuff. So,
beautiful. Yeah, it's a great bone, isn't it, the clavicle? Well, this joint actually is an extraordinary, isn't it? We love this joint. Love this joint. Anything else? So are you reasonably reassured that there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into these segments so that there are some similarities? Is that, because there is, I've taught in Sydney, and I know, and Stephanie taught the same segment here, and there was a lot of, you know, thank you, congruence, yeah. And communication and so forth. Are you comfortable with that? All right. Okay. You are quite quiet, aren't you? Is this unusual? Is it Sunday?
We usually told the Melbourne group are quite quiet and the Sydney group aren't, so it doesn't explain anything.
Yeah, well, Glenn's not here, is he?
Where's Joel?
And who's the other chatty?
Joel's late. Joel's running late, I think.
Yeah. You know, I can pick on people. I'll pick on Viv if you want. Yes. Sorry? All right. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have an early tea break then. Is it? Have I changed my watch? Is it 10:30 or is it 11?
10:30.
You want a tea break? Have a quick tea break. Well, no. Okay. Because it is Sunday. I'm just trying to think how whether I want to be mean and make you do 15 minutes tea break, or do you want 20? Yeah, you're going to socialise, aren't you? 20-minute tea break. All right, we'll come back at 10 to.